Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the KNKL Show, episode 45. I am your humble host, Keenan Lafferty. Today is July 28th, I believe. Yes, July 28th, 2012. And today we are going to be doing a show not necessarily on physical art, but more on the mental game. What goes into basically your thought process when you are an artist. And I've basically been asked a lot of great questions during the Q&A sessions at the KNKL pool party by the awesome people that have been attending that. And basically I've been posting the Q&A sessions from Ustream to YouTube, but unfortunately last week we had some technical difficulties. So I am going to basically reiterate a couple questions that I really liked and that I wanted to share with a lot of you, because I feel that this is a question that commonly comes up with artists and just people in general. And on top of that, since we are going to be doing mostly a video blog daily today, I am going to go into a little bit of a, I guess you could call it a little bit of an epiphany that I've had over the last few days. It's kind of mostly something that's been going on with myself, but that has to do with planning and taking the first step. So, but before we get into that, I want to talk about the awesome questions that I've been getting at the KNKL pool party. So, the first question that I was asked last week was about artist block. Basically, you know, when you're drawing something and you're working on whatever piece and you feel like you're just getting, like the motions are getting monotonous, or you don't really know what you're doing. You're painting, right? Your hands are painting, but you don't know what you're doing, like what you're trying to accomplish. And so the question is artist block, and how do you deal with it? So the best way that I usually try to watch for this is you kind of develop a little bit of a mental state when you're working on a painting, and you'll notice that you'll be working and your hands are doing something, but your mind will be somewhere else, right? Your mind will be thinking about what you're going to do next, or another thought that you had for a painting or another drawing. And once you start noticing that you're doing that, the best thing to do is actually take a step back, stand up, walk around, and this is probably the best thing that I could ever do, is actually go outside for a second and actually, like, especially if it's a nice day outside, like it's been these last few days in California. Like, the sun has been out, it's been sunny, it's been warm but not hot. It's not so hot that you hear like those freaking buzzing beetles in the trees. It's like, where are those? I never even like seen one up close. I think they're called cicadas or cicadas. But you never see them, but you can always hear them, and it just makes it sound, or it makes it feel so much hotter when you can hear those freaking bugs buzzing in the trees. But no, it has not been that way for the last few days here in California. It's been absolutely superb, delightful. So I actually find that very, very relaxing. You can go out, and usually what happens is, I feel artist block is almost like there's other thoughts that are trying to enter your mind, whether it's about another drawing you're doing, something that is bugging you in your life, like something you need to resolve, something else you should be doing, whether it's like, I don't know, some sort of chore, or maybe you wanted to go to the gym that day, just interesting things that are kind of going into your mind and wanting to kind of take up that space. And if you give it that space by going outside and just thinking about it, then it will kind of, you will give it that time, and then you can come back in and be like, okay, I'm going to go back to drawing now. And then when you come back in, you'll be like, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish with this drawing, and I'm going to do just that. Like, don't bother painting something in the background, like those towels in the background hanging off the bikes. If I was painting a picture of myself, I wouldn't bother putting a lot of detail into those, because they're not important. They're just there to be towels. The most important thing is the focal point, which is right up in here. So that's kind of a funny analogy. But yeah, when I'm painting and I encounter artist block, the best thing for me to do is just take a break, and then come back and kind of refocus on what it is I'm trying to accomplish, and just get the bare bones down. And then after that, you can add all the little special effects, and then you can kind of just have fun with it. So that was an awesome question. I'm really happy to the person who asked that. I don't remember exactly who it was, but I'm sure that person does remember. So thank you, whichever pool party attendee asked that. And we move on to the next one, which is also another awesome question. This is something that not only I struggle with, but I'm sure so many artists have this same problem, right? I wouldn't even call it a problem. It's just it's an interesting mental thing. And that is, do you get discouraged when you look at other artists? And how do you keep passion with your work when you see so many others that could be, further ahead than you? Okay, so this is a huge question and a very hugely good question. Yes, that's right. I said hugely good. So, okay, so when I was growing up, I remember I was so excited to get my little DeviantArt page, and I was putting up like, at first I noticed a lot of people, I just wanted to be one of the crowd, right? And I saw a lot of people were just putting up these photo manipulations that they had done. And then it was basically like a picture of some girl, and they threw some lens flares on it like everywhere. It was like 3 like up in the corner, and like 5 like kind of like silhouetting her. And then they like have like some type in there that said like love or passion, and like just a bunch of like stuff everywhere. And they like blur the photo and put like blow it out with all the contrast. And that's basically how DeviantArt got started. So I wanted to be part of the crowd, and of course I started doing photo manipulations and trying to basically copy the style. And looking back, it's just so funny how you kind of like, as an artist, you look at what everybody else is doing, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, I need to be doing that too. And you sort of forget about what it is that you have to offer the world, what it is that makes your style only, your unique thing that you bring to the world. And I think it's important to not lose track of that. You see, as you develop your style as an artist, and as you start pursuing a career in the professional world, it's going to be good to be versatile, right? So it's always good to look at other artists and other styles and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to study that a little bit and figure out what they're doing, right? But you don't want to just become a clone, right? You don't want to be like, oh, hey, that guy's a professional, I'm going to do exactly what he's doing. And then you end up, your portfolio and all your pictures look exactly like this other guy. And then it's just like, okay, well, oh, you're just another one of these artists that draws like this, you know? And that is what I really don't think that an artist should become. I think an artist should be versatile with their style, but I think that every artist has their own story and their own style to bring to the world. And I think that's very important that you out there develop it, and don't get discouraged by what you think. And that's the other thing, is art is so subjective. What somebody may think is the best picture in the world, another person may poo-poo it, be like, oh, such a rudimentary technique. I cannot believe this is up in this gallery. And it's just like when other people see like a freaking canvas that's just painted black and has white squiggles all over it, they'll be like, the execution is just beautiful. The message is so clear. And so art is very subjective, and I don't think you should worry too much about being like, oh, that guy's a better artist than me. Just look at it as he's developed his own style, and whether it's rendering photorealistic textures or flow or cartoony shapes, it's like it's his own style. And yeah, feel free to explore it, but do not, I repeat, do not become a clone, because that is not good for anyone. So, and to sum all that up, that is why you should not get discouraged by looking at other artists. You should instead get excited by it and start exploring a little bit of what they do and kind of bring it into your techniques and your repertoire. Oh, I hate it when I say that. that word freaks me out. Every time I'm about to say it, it's always up in my head. Repertoire. Repertoire. All right, so with that, we are going to move on to a little bit more of the mental things that have been going on within my head, which is planning and taking the first step. So, all right, so I've been kind of in this weird funk lately at work, and it's a little bit of, well, it's not just work, it's actually just life. And I've realized that there's a lot of things that I want to do with my life still, right? Like, I have a job working professionally for an awesome video game, doing 2D art that doesn't just get featured in a concept art book when you buy the special edition or whatever, but is actually like the front running advertisements for, the new characters that come out. And that is awesome. So that's definitely a very good position to be in as an artist, and I'm very grateful for it. But there's other things that I want to do. Like, I love doing the show. I want to make my comic. I want to create my own company, or I want to start a band, someday. Like all these crazy, you know, uh, dreams that when you tell people about it, they might think you're crazy. But one second, I'm gonna take a break. Mm. Ah, that's nice. That's the first time I've taken a drink on the daily. Yes. A certain somebody else does this as well with his dailies. So I'm trying to copy him. It makes me feel more like him. Yes. I feel the power. Also, it gives you time to think about what you're going to say next. That's kind of nice. So, um, but something is keeping me from taking the first steps and planning these things. And I took some time to ask myself, and I was talking with a few of my other coworkers and friends, and I've heard this said in many other places as well. But I wanted to basically just kind of state this. And the question is, what keeps us from taking that first step? And the answer is fear. But that's usually where people leave it because it's obvious, right? It's like, oh, well, I don't want to try this because I'm afraid of failing. Huh? How many of you have heard that? I'm afraid of failing, right? Or I can't do this because, oh, what happens if I fail, right? And I want to ask you, is it actually the fear of failure that's stopping you? Because it's the most logical and tangible outcome to whatever dream you're pursuing, right? So I came to the conclusion that I, personally, and I think maybe other people do this too, we tell ourselves that it's the fear of failure that stops us from taking that first step, when actually it's the fear of the unfathomable success, right? The unfathomable outcome of success, because it brings change. And change is uncertain, and we fear what we cannot see and what is uncertain more than what is logical and what is, basically the tangible outcome, right? So, and the other funny thing is, like, if you try something and you fail, you usually kind of stay right where you are, Or, like, if you spend a bunch of money, then, yeah, you'll be in debt or whatever. But, for the most part, it's like you'll keep working at the job that you have to pay off the debt or whatever. You'll stay where you are, and that's not change. So it's not really that scary. It's like, okay, if I try this, and, it doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense that you can be scared by fear. Instead, I think, like I said, we just tell ourselves that because it's the easiest thing to latch onto. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of throw that out there. Taking the first step, I think, is probably one of the big, well, that's actually just in terms of why we don't take the first step. Let me go into taking the first step. So, there's a lot of power in starting something, right? There's a lot of, I'm sure you've heard this before. It's like a boulder. There's a tipping point. There's a boulder that's sitting on the edge of a cliff, right? And it could be a 5-pound boulder or it could be a 2-ton boulder, But once you push it off the edge, once you make that first step, once you start the thing, it gets momentum. The inertia of it rolling down the hill will make it unstoppable. Well, that's just another science term I decided to throw in there. But, no, yeah, taking the first step, I've found, is actually really the hardest part, because after you do that, the rest of it just kind of like happens. And I think this all relates all the way back to why we don't take the first step. It's because we're afraid of what's going to happen, because it's going to bring about change, and we're not sure what's going to happen from it. It's not because we're afraid we're going to try it and then nothing's going to happen, because that would change nothing and we're fine. So, yeah, I wanted to tell you guys about that, because I think that's a really important thing. Not only in art, like say you have an awesome picture idea, or say you want to create a technique, or like if you have this awesome picture idea, but maybe you don't have the knowledge or the techniques to maybe execute the picture as well as you want to, you should still take that first step to do it. And then at the end of it, you'll realize it's like, oh, you know what? I could have done this better. Or you'll see a picture and be like, oh, that guy executed it properly. Let me examine that. Let me examine how he used like the atmosphere, or maybe some of the colors, or the composition, or the values. Now that I did the daily on the values, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad I can actually use that term. Because I mean, 2 years ago, you tell me what the values of a picture were, I'd be like, what? What does that mean? Like how bright it is? So yeah, I think it's good to know a little bit of like it's fun to do research on pictures and just general like color theory and what goes into making an exciting and engaging picture. And there's still a lot more for me to learn, obviously, but yeah, just instead of looking at it with such a negative light, and that's the other thing I want to talk about. Instead of looking at things in a negative light of like what you can't do and what you need to get done, whenever you finish a picture and you're like, oh man, I could have done this better, or you see something else that's like, oh, I want to do something like that, take that as an exciting opportunity for you to explore and look at what that person has done and then learn from that and take it into your own techniques. You should always be excited whenever you see somebody that is better than you. And not saying that like, and again, that's you're saying they're better than you, you know? You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, all art is pretty much relative, right? Whenever you see somebody who you think is better than you or is doing something that you want to do, you know, take that as an exciting opportunity. Basically, the trail has been blazed, and now you get to follow them and be like, oh, I can see what you did here, but I'm going to take this way where you went that way and see what happens over here. You know, so you can go as far as you want, and then you can trail off and do your own thing, you know, or you can go back and continue to follow them until you've gotten whatever it is you're seeking, until you reach the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But that is a lie, because we know that there is no such thing as leprechauns, or at least from what I've seen. Maybe they're hanging with the cicadas in the trees. That's where they all hide, because you never see both, or you never see either of them. So yeah, and that is my conclusion: the leprechauns and the cicadas. That's what I'm gonna put in the comments. The comments is just gonna say leprechauns and cicadas. Oh man, but yeah, it's definitely always good to have a positive spin on whatever it is you're looking at, whether it's a challenge. Never tell yourself that you suck or that you are not a good artist, because that is going to do nothing for you. It is actually going to beat you down, and you will become what you think you are. So if you tell yourself you suck as an artist, like, you are not going to get better. So it's very, very invaluable that you kind of pump yourself up, you know, get excited. Tell yourself, it's like, wow, you know what? I have my own style. I have something great and unique to bring to this world, and I'm proud of that. And if you do that, you will become not only a great artist, but a better person as well. Because positive people have positive things happen in their life. They attract positive other people, positive friends, and positive outcomes. So always keep that in mind. Moving on to the next one. Planning. Okay, so I want to talk about this. This is another big thing, and it actually correlates back to the first step, because most of the time, the first step is planning. And again, we avoid planning because we're afraid of what's going to happen if we actually plan it and execute it. But, however, planning actually doesn't take that long. It literally takes like 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 5 minutes at most, you know, if you're making a big old list about, you know, what you want to accomplish within the next 5 years, you know. But even that, it's actually better if you keep it very, very simple. So mentally planning your day is actually a huge step toward getting it done before you even start it. That is very, very cool. I'm actually going to repeat that. Mentally planning your day is the best way, is a huge step toward getting it done before you even start it. Because what you've done is you've taken something from your head, you have physically transposed it to your note-taking device, and when you do that, you are thinking of everything that you are writing down. All right, and this can be whether you're going to go get groceries, or you're going to go swim at the pool, or you're going to start your own company one day, or make a comic. You know, all of these things, whether they're long-term or short-term, as you write them down, you're imagining them happening. And that is a very, very powerful tool, because when it happens in your mind, you know, I'm sure that you've heard this before, like people, the reason why, and I like to think about this, the reason why people enjoy games so much, especially like online multiplayer games like World of Warcraft and Terra, especially. Terra is like the new big one. I'd like to think that a big reason why people enjoy this is because the human brain has a hard time distinguishing between fantasy and reality. If you're thinking it and you believe it, then you are actually there. And that is why, that's why I personally get so much enjoyment out of the pool parties, because when we're doing those, literally, my mind is engaged to the point where I really feel like I'm there with people. It's really awesome. It's a great feeling. And I'm not smoking anything either, so that's also a good thing. You don't necessarily need that. So, yeah, but that goes back to your mind there's a very thin line between your mind distinguishing between fantasy and reality. So when you transpose things from your head to the physical realm, you imagine yourself doing them, and then your body actually becomes acquainted with that feeling. It's like you write down, I'm going to the gym today. Your mind has already thought about that. And when it comes time to go to the gym, your mind already says, oh, I've already done this today, Not, I've already done this today, so I'm going to go home and take a nap, but it's like it's already familiar with it. So it's not like, oh, yeah, I just ate a whole thing of cotton candy and popcorn. I guess I should go to the gym. Yeah, because you haven't planned it, and it's so much easier at that point for your mind to be like, no, you don't need to do that. So, yeah, I'd like to just sum that up by saying, yes, mentally planning gets a huge part of your day done, or it's a huge step towards getting your day done before you even start it. So, all right, so that is a lot of the mental things that have been going on through my mind. But, however, before we finish up the daily number 45, I have some bonus material for you. And that is, a few weeks ago, someone asked me about my application to write and basically what I did as far as my portfolio that I submitted. So, today I am going to share that with you and basically talk about what was in my portfolio and why I decided to put it in there. So, let us get started, shall we? First things first, let's make sure it's right side up. I went to Michael's and I got this Art Pro folio, because I was pro, right? And I didn't take it out because I wanted them to look at that and be like, oh, this guy's pro. He got a pro folio. And also, you'll notice the other thing is it's not 8.5 by 11. It's 14 by 17. It's big. I wanted my prints to be large and in charge, and I went to a professional printing company to have them done because I wanted to make it look like I spent a lot of time and money in presenting this to them and show that I just put some thought into when I came into my in-house interview. So, without further ado, we will get started. So, the first thing in here you'll notice is the Sona piece. So, for those of you who have gone to my DeviantArt, I'm sure you've seen this one. I threw this one in there because I felt like it was kind of probably the closest thing to a splash that I had done for them up to this point. And of course it's featuring their own character, right? So I'm applying for Riot. They're probably gonna like it that I'm passionate about their characters and I draw them in my off time anyway. Again, moving on to another one. And notice how this one is a little bit more of a different style. This is Kog'Maw, right? But as you look closely, there's a lot of more realistic textures and things in him, basically. And it's kind of more of like a suggestive painterly background. This is showing my versatility as an artist. Next up, we have LeBlanc. And this is probably kind of overkill at this point. I don't know, maybe... Actually, no. You can never have too many pictures of the IP that you're trying to get a job for, I think. Especially, if they're impressive and they're good. So this one, next up, is LeBlanc. Again, this is showcasing a little bit more of my comic, more cartoony style, right? A little bit more of the anime kind of inspired stuff. This is actually the style that I really like to work in. And then, of course, we got the troll picture. We got Gurgot. This is showing that I have creative juices flowing through my brain, although probably a little bit demented if I came up with something like this. Yeah, so this is showing, hey, I can take some of your champions and do cool spins on them and make skins out of them if I need to when I work here. Moving on, and then again, this is like the totally anime one. I don't know if I should have really included this one because I personally don't really like this Annie. I'd probably draw it a lot different nowadays, but it's still kind of cute, I guess. So I just left it in there. Up next, we have the Worgen versus the Null from World of Warcraft. And, okay, so this is funny because talking about values, right? If I were to put a black and white, or if I were to put a black layer over this and then turn it to color in Photoshop, the values on this would literally be all over the place. But although it's a cool picture, like there's a lot going on. You know, you got like all the ghouls over here, and then this Null shaman who I think is utterly badass. I still love this picture. But overall, since I've been working there, I've learned there's a lot of ways I could have cleared this up and made it just more clear in terms of value. Moving on, we have Hisienka from the Darkstalkers series. I threw this one in there because it has all this negative white space, and when you do that, people know that you're an artist because you use negative space. It's all about this right here. This is what makes the picture good, not this. It's this. So, I'm joking, by the way. But, well, half joking. That's the scary part. So yeah, I threw this one in there because it's kind of like a more relaxed pose. I'm hoping to show that I can capture like attitude and feeling in a character as opposed to just like drawing concepts with them all like this, you know, in their little T-pose or just like standing there with like a blank face. Because expression is a big thing, especially when you're doing illustrative pieces and splashes and stuff. I really like to show expression on the characters through their, not only their pose, but in their face too. I think that's a big thing. This one is Leah from Diablo 3. Even though this game sucked, I still like this girl. I think she's hot. So yeah, I threw that in there. And this was in there to show that I can do a little bit more of a realistic thing. This is pretty much the most realistic painting I had done up to this point. And I was actually pretty proud of it because there's like lots of texture stuff going on. And you got that cool little candle in the front. You know, I was just kind of playing around with a lot of lighting. Again, if I did this today, I probably could have done a lot better. But at the time, I was really proud of it. And it got me the job, so I guess it impressed them as well. Impressed them enough. Now I move on to my crazy anime comic style. Right? This is, again, showing my versatility. And just that, you know, I don't take myself too seriously, and I'm okay with just like kind of going outside of the box and just kind of doing a weird style every now and then. And I enjoy it. Again, another one. This is that anime style. This one's Emma. This is actually the character from the comic I'm thinking of doing, the zombie comic. And yeah, that's her. It's basically the anime style, but it's rendered. So that's interesting. It's the anime style, but it's rendered with more realistic like skin and shadows and stuff. More anime stuff. This one was from a contest on DeviantArt for the Fantasy Earth Zero. Basically, it's just like these anime people with giant weapons. Imagine that. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. It is interesting. The anime style wasn't exactly like this. I'd like to call this my own take on anime style. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anybody that does the eyes exactly the same way as I do, but maybe that's just me being full of myself. Moving on. Now, this is the part in my portfolio where I decided to show my professional work. This is from a book that I did called Bo and the Beanstalk. That is Bo and the Beanstalk. It never got printed, to my knowledge, yet, but there's like a trailer. There's a little thing on it on YouTube. So I can show these without getting in trouble, luckily. But this is basically me showing that I was professional at one point, and I'm looking to be professional again. Basically, it shows that, you know, I can do illustrative pieces, and I have, you know, knowledge of composition, flow, effects, stuff like that, and style too, because this is actually, I was excited because I actually got to concept and create everything in this book, like from the style of the characters to the costumes they'd wear. And little did I know exactly how much that would come into play in the professional world. Like, when I was doing it for the book, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to figure out what clothes these guys are going to wear, you know? But there's actually a lot of thought that went into it. There's a lot of, like, 16th century, you know, references and stuff like that. I'm not the best with, like, historical, like, styles when it comes to clothing, but I know that I was referencing a lot of 16th century kind of stuff, like Shakespearean type clothing. Here's another one. This is basically, it's a cool story. It's actually, it's a story of a guy named Bo, who is the giant. He's actually the protagonist, and he gets tired of living up in the kingdom of the clouds with the giants because they all kind of, they all ostracize him, treat him like a nerd, which is terrible. And so he goes down to Earth to start a new life, and Jack is actually kind of a secondary character that ends up becoming the villain later on. It's actually really cool. He's like a magician who's looking for, he seeks power, and he wants to control fire. So it's actually a really awesome book. I hope that it gets printed one of these days. But however, if it did, maybe I'd want to go back and revisit the illustrations one more time. Maybe make them really awesome, because I know I could do a really good job today. So anyway, moving on, we got Jokette. This is just another fun character I did. Basically, it's just, you know, it's the girl version of Joker from The Dark Knight. And then this. As I went back, I decided to kind of show a little bit my less, I don't know, these, I kind of look at this and think this is a filler piece now. I mean, it's cool because actually this is probably the best like realistic portrait I could have done back then. So I guess it's good that I added it in. But these are actually supposed to be living versions of the undead characters that my best friend, and I played on World of Warcraft. Here's another. This is another one of my comic book characters, but this one's rendered in a more realistic style. And this one's Shade. She's pretty cool. She's a hot mama. One day. And then I think I wrapped things up. Oh no, wait, I got one more. This is basically showing. I did some designs for T-shirts a while ago, and I got like this little amp head guy right here. Whoa! Dang, I almost knocked over my water. It's dangerous. So I got this little amp head guy, and I got these roses here. This would be a cool shirt, right? Like, you got this. This actually wraps around the back, so it's just like this little rose here. And then on the front, it's just covered in all these, you know, cool roses with fangs. They're like Vladimir roses. Oh, wait, but Vladimir doesn't have fangs because he's not a vampire. He's just a hemo mage, but everybody draws him as a vampire. So, there you go. And then I wrap things up with my Metal Slug tribute. I was hoping that anybody who would be looking at this at the office would be a Metal Slug fan and be like, yes, hire this man. He's a Metal Slug fan, and therefore he is a big shot and a badass. So, that concludes the portfolio that I submitted to Riot, or that I brought in with me to Riot for my professional in-house interview. And I would highly urge any of you who get an in-house interview or just get to meet somebody at a convention or anything, always have a physical thing of your portfolio, whether it's on your iPad. I mean, I know that's like the big thing nowadays, but I think there's still something that I love about somebody who's printed out and made an awesome presentation and a physical portfolio. So, but I think there's probably people that prefer the iPad version since it's a little bit more easy and they're lazy like that. So, whatever the case, do not go into an interview and be like, oh yeah, here's my website. Like, that just doesn't, oh man. That's a big turnoff for me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Again, not that I judge people, but, you know, it's just nice. Like, if you're going in for a job, show that you want it. Show that you're hungry and you're ready to take it, you know? So, with that, wow, this has actually been a very long and hopefully informative daily. This has been episode 45 of the KNKL Show. I'm going to do my outro now. Thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you don't. I am Keenan Lafferty, and I will see you guys tomorrow at the Sunday KNKL pool party on the Acero Realm in World of Warcraft at 10 o'clock p.m. Wow, that was awesome. Anyway, I love you guys, and I'll see you then.